Already in 2024, we have had so many awards shows, and today's fashion edition is all about the red carpet looks from the Governor's Awards. Now, if you do not know what that is, I don't blame you. It's kind of an obscure and rather new award within Hollywood. It's an annual gala held by the Academy of Motion Arts and Pictures, and I think this is the 14th year they've done it, so that's why it's relatively new. It honors lifetime achievement in Hollywood and features awards conferred by the Academy Board of Governors. It was somewhat overshadowed due to the Critics' Choice Awards and the Emmy Awards rescheduled from September 2023, kind of overlapping within the same couple of weeks. But there were many noteworthy fashions and a handful of travesties too. Let's begin with Dior. We saw two different ladies sporting Dior that evening, and they weren't my favorite, which is kind of a surprise because I love Dior. Usually they're some of the best, especially so far this year. They had some of the best looks from the most recent 3 award ceremonies. But first, let's take a look at Glenn Close. She's wearing this beautiful cream, like off-white Dior dress. It's a full-length dress with a dramatic, almost caped sleeve on one side. I'm not a huge fan of these looks. It's a little too much like a nightshirt or a muumuu. It really needs something more to add interest and break it up just a tad. Even the collar seems too simple. The bow and caped effect off to one side just isn't enough to bring this to life. It looks a little bit too much like she's holding a towel. Perhaps some embroidery, a little embellishment somewhere. I don't know, a little bit more form-fitting, something would have helped it. Rather than this. It's simple and sleek and beautifully well made. It's just not enough to be like a wow moment. And meanwhile, Greta Gerwig wearing Dior finally doesn't look like a complete and utter disaster. That sounds harsh, but it's just, no offense, her recent awards show appearances were tragic. She was wearing these really shapeless, oversized tops that did her absolutely no favors, and she didn't even come out of it looking polished. It was often looking kind of wrinkly and disheveled. This is different. This may not be my favorite thing ever. It still looks kind of basic. It's leaning into that sort of masculine vibe, but at least it looks polished. It's clean, tidy, polished, no wrinkles, no frumpiness. So at least it's some degree of a flattering silhouette here and polished. So even though it's not my favorite, it is an improvement for her. So credit where credit's due. Greta Lee showed up wearing Bottega Veneta, and I don't love it. I have to be honest, the color is beautiful, but it's a little bit like Genie pants clashed with a Star Trek shirt. It's just not quite working for me. It's very sculptural. I could see it being really impactful in a magazine, in a photo shoot, on a website, in a picture. But wearable-wise, it's just not quite working for me. It's a little awkward. It's a little funky. I do think that this neckline could have been really successful with a different skirt. Even keeping that princess seam in the slight drop waist of the skirt would have been fine. It just needed a skirt that actually maybe flowed rather than kind of gather in and look slightly awkward as it gets down towards the bottom. Also, the silver shoes are not tied in any way, shape, or form, so they end up looking really disjointed in this look. Divine Joy Randolph chose Custom Tony Ward, and you know, I love the skirt portion. From the knee down, this is so extraordinarily gorgeous. It's so beautiful and flattering. It looks just perfect from the knee down. The rest of it, I'm not completely in love with. The shawl idea here on this top half does give a nice diagonal line and encourages you to look down to that skirt, almost like just drawing your eyes straight down to the gorgeous skirt. So that part's working well. Ingenue Ellis Taylor is wearing something I really truly dislike. I just have to say, the cape and shoulders and the drape fabric and the ties, it's just tons and tons of shapeless weight up here on the shoulders. It's making everything look rounded. It's making everything look really, really top heavy and kind of overwhelming up here, just kind of bulk. And therefore making her upper body look huge, and that's just not doing her any favors. I think that this one is a miss. Another miss that really didn't need to be such a big miss was Emma Stone wearing Fendi Haute Couture. I love the color of this so very much. I love the embellishments. The pink is gorgeous. I'm obsessed. In fact, I used to have a shirt that was this exact shade of pink and it had all sorts of sparkles on it. It was for pageants. I loved it. It was amazing. So that part of it is wonderfully pretty, and I really, really like this shade of pink on her. I think she looks amazing in that. Her makeup is perfect for it. But it's just, as far as structure and the actual design of the piece, frumpy and shapeless and doing her no favors at all. While the colors and embellishments are interesting without being too busy and executed really, really well, this garment is just not flattering to her figure. The skirt is way too low and looks really awkward. It's making her look really wide, and the top gives the vibe that it is too big as well. The way that it's hanging off and has all this ginormous space in the sleeves. I think if the skirt was better fit to her, she could have gotten away with the top. Or if the top was different, the skirt wouldn't be so bad, but I still am not in love with this sort of drapey, folded looking, messy faux slit it has happening in the front. It's just giving frumpy, especially the skirt. And the top is giving messy. Tracee Ellis Ross in another outfit that had great potential, lost. I think in her case, if the skirt came up just a tad bit higher to help define her waistline better, it would have been a lot more successful. But where the skirt is hitting, paired up with the extra room in the top, now, not every top needs to be skin tight. I'm not saying that. It's just that with the skirt having extra volume to it and quite a bit of extra fabric, it needed a more form-fitting top to not lose her figure, which is what's happening here. She looks a little bit swallowed up by the shirt and skirt combined. So if the skirt came up higher or the top was more form-fitting, it would have given her waistline room to show up and allowed her figure to be complemented by this volume in the skirt rather than sort of muddied up and hidden by it. I do like her styling for this. Her hair and makeup for this, her jewelry, it's all on point, especially with the high collar coming up here, having her hair back and slick. It's really helpful to help elongate her out of that top. I even like the length of the sleeves on this, and I like her shoes. It's just not perfect. Next we have Rosamund Pike in Erdem, and oh no, this is just not it. This is not working. This dress has these sculpted hips that create width, but it's starting way too high for her torso, which is widening her figure unfairly. If it started lower, giving her waist room to show up and shine, it wouldn't have been so bad at all. It also wouldn't have looked quite as stiff. Furthermore, the bust looks like it's falling down. The cups needed to come up just a tad bit higher. It almost looks like she was just too tall for this dress and therefore had to make it work this way. I'm not sure. I like that her earrings match. I like her hairstyle for this neckline. It's just the dress wasn't a good fit for her proportions. Next, let's take a look at Olivia Munn in Maticevski. I love the silhouette of this. I love the idea of this. The execution, not quite. She looks fabulous, and this is a fabulous garment and fabulous, interesting silhouette and design. And I love her styling here. Her hair and makeup are perfect. She could have done with a necklace, but I'm not even that worried about it because she looks great. This is also a great option for her figure. She has a very nice, tall, slender figure that can pull off a look like this. The only problem is this fabric. It's a fabric that is going to look wrinkly. It's meant to look wrinkly. It's a crinkle fabric. And those are just not the best option when you're going to be photographed in these situations, because the flash makes the wrinkling and crinkling of the fabric even more exaggerated. It ends up looking too often like you just didn't try, like you just lost your iron, lost your steamer, and showed up anyway. This is a crinkle satin fabric paired up with the camera flash is really distracting from the beautiful construction of this dress. So that's unfortunate because it otherwise would have been amazing. And just imagine it in a more smooth fabric. It's really beautiful. Edebiri had another miss. She is very hit and miss so far this year on the awards ceremonies, red carpets, or in this case, blue carpet. No matter. I dislike this dress a great deal. This is by Proenza Schouler, and remember the last time we saw a Proenza Schouler, it was horrible. This one is just as awful. And it's not necessarily her fault. Clearly with the Meg, she didn't have it hemmed properly. She didn't have it fitted to her properly. In this situation, it's just not that flattering of a design. It's extremely shapeless. It draws the eye straight down to the knees, and it's just doing nothing for her. It needs some sort of interest, a better focal point, and a more flattering shape to be successful. It's just not working at all. Fantasia Barrino, another miss. She is another one of those very hit and miss red carpet gals, and this is a custom Ronnie Kobo. I'm just not obsessed with it. I'm not. I think everything is fine except this terrible, terrible white panel that widens her completely unfairly at the hip. If this were reverse in its color scheme, meaning a white dress with a black panel at the hip, it would not have the same effect. This reminds me a little bit of like a pool donut. This ruffling is just poorly executed. The rose is very bulky and taking up some of her waist. It's just adding weight in an area where it's not flattering for her. Taraji P. Henson looked absolutely stunning. This is a wonderfully gorgeous dress. The sculpted leaves and petals are bordered with gold on this black velvet gown, and it just looks so gorgeous and elegant. I absolutely love it, and her hair and makeup and jewelry are perfect for this. She could have even pushed it just a little further with some black velvet opera gloves if she really wanted to like take it up a notch. Even with some of that embroidery matching on it, it would have made it even more on trend and modern, but I still love this dress regardless. It is so beautiful. Lily Gladstone came wearing something totally different this time. No more strapless look this evening. I do wish she would have done an updo for this, just because the collar is kind of high and stiff and has got shoulder pads involved, so an updo would have just given her a little bit more elongation up out of this and maybe given it a little bit more of a polished and fresh vibe. But regardless, I think overall the look is just a tad frumpy between the flowers and the voluminous skirt. I think it could have been more successful with either less volume in the skirt and or perhaps some degree of color could have helped. It's underwhelming, but it's definitely not the worst of the evening. Wearing Valentino, we have Julianne Moore. This is another situation where the dress wasn't necessarily best for the occasion because of the fact that you're going to be photographed. These really highly reflective dresses can sometimes be difficult when it comes to camera flash because it widens you a little bit with the highly reflective shine coming off the dress. So that's kind of unfortunate. Regardless, it's a beautifully constructed dress, and I don't hate the dress or anything like that. I'm just not 100% behind it for this occasion. I do wish her hair style was different for this dress. It looks like there was nothing done to it. It looks like it was just like a normal everyday hair, and for an event like this, it shouldn't look like your everyday hair, just kind of air dried and hanging there. She should have done a little something with the hair. Overall, I think the look is just a tad drab, unfortunately. Next, we have Ariana DeBose in Monique Lhuillier, and this one is quite good. This is one of her better looks so far this year. It's a beautiful blush, soft tone, and it fits her wonderfully. I think that this simple style was a great choice for her. It came off polished. It may be a tad bit long, and I don't love the silver shoes because they're drawing the eye straight to the floor rather than letting the satin top be the focal point. And there's nothing else tying in the silver shoes. They should have been tied in with something, either in the belt of the skirt or buttons on the shirt even would have helped, a necklace, something. It needed something to make those silver shoes work. Otherwise, a matching shoe would have been the better choice. But overall, it's one of her better looks this year. She looks wonderful in it. It's a beautiful color for her as well. Surprisingly, we have a look from Carolina Herrera that was not disastrous. A fresh green tonal look. We have Shailene Woodley, and it's not so bad. As we know, Carolina Herrera has had some huge missteps in recent years. This is sleek and nice and flattering to her. The tied straps may be a bit messy in some people's opinion, but I think overall it's lovely and I think it's fine. Notice how the waistband really flatters her figure here. It's down low enough where the skirt is not eating up part of the thinnest part of her waist. If the skirt were placed any higher, it would be widening her figure. So it was really great execution in terms of placing this correctly on her frame and matching her silhouette well. Next up, we have a rare miss from Prada. We have Juliette Binoche in a yellow Prada dress that itself is fine, but I'm not 100% behind the flower decals on the off-the-shoulder neckline. It just doesn't flow nicely enough with the elegant column dress. Even the train looks to have more just like some of those rhinestones and crystals dissipating down the train, not these flowers that look almost like cut out pieces of wallpaper stuck on there. It just kind of muddied up the look and made it less elegant, unfortunately. Next, we have two different celebrities who opted to wear Celine, Margot Robbie and Carey Mulligan, and neither of them are blowing my mind. I feel like I have seen Carey Mulligan in this exact same dress, basically, every single time she's shown up on a red carpet recently. And at this point, I would like to see something new and different. She wore a black mermaid dress. She wore a black dress with a white asymmetrical bust. And she wore another one that was almost the exact same recently. it needs a little something different. A mermaid, a column in black, often with some white paneling. These dresses do flatter her figure really nicely, and they do look wonderful on her, but that does not mean that she cannot explore with something a little bit new, like some interesting color, different texture, different embellishments. I don't know, add some opera gloves or something to spruce it up a little bit. I am very much an advocate for sticking with what works for you and wearing what you're comfortable in when it comes to silhouette especially. And if she's very comfortable in these and they do flatter her figure, then there are no problems. But you still could push for something in a different color or different embellishments, different embroidery, like something fresh and different. As for the sculpted panel on this, I don't love it. I'm not wowed by it. As for Margot Robbie's option, it's just not the most flattering design for her. This sort of a neckline just kind of widens her. She has an amazing figure, but she doesn't have like the most well-defined waist. And so when you have these sorts of straps, similar to the pink one that she wore, and you have waist cutouts, for example, in this situation, it just kind of widens both her shoulder line and her waistline. I think this would have looked much more polished if it either had sleeves allowing the waist cutouts to be the focal point, or if it would forego the waist cutouts and just let the shoulder area be the focal point. One or the other, because this situation is just making her look more broad than she actually is. Additionally, the strap and bodice area is not the best for her. Anytime you see somebody look like they're holding their shoulders up and back a little bit awkwardly, then it's an indication that generally speaking, the straps are a little bit too long for them or the dress is not quite fitting them perfectly. And they're trying to make it work by pulling those shoulders up and back. And that's what she looks like in all of these pictures. I can't unsee it. She looks like she's lifting up her shoulders and pulling them back because it's just maybe got a little too much room in the strap or something. I'm not sure. It also could be a situation where if she got fitted with a bra on, then she was wearing maybe no bra or just a stick-on bra for this situation. Less padding, less structure means it's going to fit differently and have more room in the straps. It could be that. It might not even be that it was made improperly or tailored improperly, but rather she swapped undergarments for this occasion and therefore changed the dimensions of the situation and needed the straps shorter in order to wear it with a different undergarment, if that makes sense. So ultimately, this one was a bit of a miss. Despite being an otherwise interesting and pretty dress, it just isn't working perfectly for her in this situation. Angela Bassett that evening was awarded an honorary Oscar and she wore Dolce & Gabbana, and I like it until we get to the mermaid skirt. I'm not fully behind this tulle mermaid skirt material in beige. I'm not sure that it's the most flattering color choice for this. I also think that for this occasion, it may have looked better if it wasn't sheer in the thighs. It just kind of adds a little bit too much of a focal point right there between the legs. And I feel like it would have looked much more polished and beautiful if it just had been lined from there down. Otherwise, though, I quite like the dress. I think the waistband is perfect. I think that her styling is impeccable. Her hair and makeup look beautiful. Kaylee Spaney found success with Miu Miu. Last time she wore Miu Miu, it was less than perfect. This time, it is literally perfection. This is really, really nice. The deep V-neck and waist cutout work really, really well thanks to that silver glittering bow. If that weren't there, you would bounce between the waist cutout and the V-neck and you wouldn't quite know where to land. But thanks to that big, chunky, gorgeous, I absolutely love it, sparkly bow, it's really letting that be the focal point, and then you can take in the rest of the dress in your peripherals, but you focus in on that bow and it just really creates a beautiful balanced effect. Emily Blunt also wore Miu Miu, and I'm a tad thrown off by the embellishment, but I really like the idea of it. I just think in one part of me says it's a little too chunky. The other part thinks these are just slightly awkward. It's not my favorite design for them, but in other angles, like when she's at a bit of an angle in other photographs like this one, it looks so much more beautiful and gorgeous. So perhaps just straight on, it was a tad aggressive, maybe needed a little bit of editing. So I'm not completely sold on it, but I do think she pulled it off wonderfully. The dress is amazing and she looks absolutely stunning. Cara Jade Myers is wearing Zimmerman and she missed the mark rather wildly with the frills and ruffles and lace. It's just a lot. They're really, really busy. There's a lot happening here. If you were to wear this dress and you had to wear this dress, it calls for stud earrings rather than these big noisy earrings, for sure. Stud earrings all the way. Additionally, the shoes were an awful choice for this dress. She should have gone with something very, very simple and white. 100% these weird gold shoes with noise on them. Totally wrong choice. As for the dress itself, I don't love it. It looks like there's like random doilies stuck on here and there. But I do like the cuffs and I do like the trim along the bottom. It's a lot, and I'm not loving it. Nash had absolute success in Christian Siriano. This is one of the things he does best. He can make a dress look flattering on a huge variety of body types, and he is so good at it. It is fabulous. This is so beautiful. She looks spectacular. This is exactly what she needed and what he does best. It flows really nicely. The strap shape helps to frame her chest nicely. It's just perfect in every way. Penelope Cruz chose Chanel for the evening, and she has a boxier torso herself. So this is actually really, really flattering to her figure and ingenious when it comes to styling perspective. The skirt begins at an absolutely perfect placement. Its flouncy flare creates the illusion of a more well-defined waist. I think it's very beautiful. The embroidery is gorgeous and adds interest, but I do think the straps are a tad bit heavy. I think it would have been more beautiful with like spaghetti straps because you want to look at the skirt and you're also drawn to the embroidery, but the straps keep kind of dominating the visual. You keep being called back to those thick, chunky straps. I think it would have been so much more beautiful with something more delicate for the strap. Eva Longoria chose Sophie Couture, and I like so much of this. It's this fresh lime green we're seeing a lot of this year, but it does look like it might be a tad too long for her. There's maybe a little bit too much room down at the hemline and a little bit too much room around the waist and armpit area, almost like it's hanging just a little too low, cutting her a little low. Now it is a low back design, but even still, it's just maybe a tad bit long for her. But overall, the silhouette of this is very, very successful. She's a little bit more apple-shaped, and so not creating any sort of a focal point of the waistline is the exact right approach. And it draws the eyes up to that embellished collar and her face. So it's a really good approach in that regard. Olivia Rodrigo chose a 1997 Saint Laurent Couture, which is really, really nice. I love the simple, sleek, elegant design, and she carries it really, really well. I do think a nice necklace is in order for this. And again, if she wanted to really push it into something new and fresh, since she is wearing something from 1997, some opera gloves would have really done that, or even like a nice big cuff, as well as a matching necklace, like something just a little bit of oomph. But overall, it's really beautiful. It looks really, really nice and flatters her figure well. And again, look, because it's a sweetheart neckline, it doesn't look like it's falling down. It's not causing quad boob. It doesn't look like it's sitting too low. That can be a really great way to make a strapless dress work better, is to give it a bit of a sweetheart neckline or a curved neckline rather than those straight across ones. We've seen a lot of quad boob happening and slippage happening with those straight across strapless dresses. So this was a success in every way. Natalie Portman chose Schiaparelli, and I absolutely love the gold chain of this. I love the velvet waistband, the skirt, and the styling. The hair and makeup are absolutely perfect. She is really, really talented at choosing a great complete vision when it comes to her hair, makeup, and jewelry, really tying her look together. She's really good at that, or she has a great stylist. Either way, she usually pulls her looks together really nicely. The only thing that's not my favorite design feature of this is the fabric around the bust. This sort of looped up fabric along the bust. It's just not the most flattering shape in my personal opinion, but leave it in the comments what you think. I think this is one of the more controversial ways to do a bust. Danielle Brooks chose Norman Silverman, and the hair up is a really good idea for this. She's got the high collar, so that helps to elongate the vertical line for her. The color is absolutely fabulous on her, but it's just not my favorite dress overall. I think it's really good and it's a great success. One of her better looks this year. Just something about it isn't like wowing me. Maybe it's the sheerness to the top is kind of distracting and creating a bit more visual weight. It would have maybe been better if it was lined all the way up, but I do like everything else about it. Both Florence Pugh and Claire Foy chose Rodarte, and I am absolutely obsessed with this Florence Pugh dress. I think it's the best one of the evening. This is a perfectly flattering, beautiful blush pink peplum top and skirt. The center of the halter style straps is gentle enough to not interfere. This flower here, if it were thicker, chunkier, or louder, it would totally dominate and catch the eye too much and ruin the look. But it being sort of sheer and delicate, is so ingenious. It's so perfect and beautiful. I love this in literally every way. And Claire Foy's Rodarte dress, I love everything about it except the white ruffled neckline here, this off the shoulder sleeve trim. The tulle just, it isn't tied in anywhere. The white color isn't tied in anywhere. So I feel like it's a little bit displaced. It's not congruous, and it should have been. Everything else about it is gorgeous, gorgeous and beautiful. Emerald Fennel wore Jenny Packham, and this is a wonderful choice for her. It is so beautiful, elegant, and classy. It's perfectly flattering for her body type, and with the sheer caped paneling on top. It's got a strapless bodice to the dress. It doesn't look like it's falling down. We're not getting quad boob. We have success. The only thing I would say is that an updo would have helped to elongate her up out of that high, like mock neck turtleneck really, really nicely, but the rest of it is so gorgeous. But of course, it's Jenny Packham, so it's gonna be amazing. Ava DuVernay in Louis Vuitton is another huge win of the evening, with one exception. I love absolutely everything about this. The necklace, the earrings, the hair, the makeup, the opera gloves, the bodice, the dress itself. No quad boob. Doesn't look like it's falling down. It's perfectly well done. And she's a little bit busty, and she's getting away with it just fine. This is so beautiful. But I'm not in love with the white cuffs. They remind me far too much of toddler pool floaties. It would have been so much more elegant if it were less chunky and perhaps in black, because there's no white tied in anywhere else. If you were going to do white, it definitely needed to be smaller and a less chunky shape, because this is just like insane. What is happening? Why are we ruining an otherwise perfectly stunning look with ginormous, oversized, bulky, chunky, white pool floaty tubes? Journey Smollett also chose Louis Vuitton, and this dress is so gorgeous. I love the shade. I love the design of it. It's flattering her figure. The sleeves are to die for. This is gorgeous. Her hair and makeup and jewelry are perfect for it. But this is not the right dress for this venue. This Governor's Awards has a much more classy, sort of sophisticated vibe. Just take a look at the fashions we've seen thus far. We're not seeing a lot of the naked dresses. Angela Bassett was the closest we got to something like that. People are not showing a ton of skin. We're seeing a lot more elegant designs. So this having the sheer skirt panel just doesn't quite fit in with the evening, with the occasion. It would have been so perfect if it were just lined. It could have even been lined with something nude, a nude lining, so that it still gave a somewhat naked effect, showcasing that lace the way it does in the sleeves. So no matter how beautiful the dress is, the sheer skirts are much more Golden Globes, Critics' Choice Grammys, less Governor's Awards and Oscars. So not quite the right dress for the occasion, but a beautiful dress nonetheless. So leave it in the comments what your absolute favorite from this fashion edition was, and I will see you next time. Have a happy day, everybody. Bye!